Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to take a look at what investors like Warren Buffett and some other famous investors bought in quarter three, because we've just seen a huge amount of the 13F filings, which show what stocks investors bought and sold in the third quarter of this year. And then I'm going to show you some of the resources I like to use to see what kind of stocks professional investors are buying. So we're going to start off with Warren Buffett and how his portfolio has changed in the third quarter. Now, in terms of the biggest addition, he added a couple of pharmaceutical biotech companies. He added Abbvie, Merck, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Pfizer. And these picks are pretty interesting. None of them are too big, and basically buying all of the large companies in the space. So I just think this is just a bet on the pharmaceutical industry as a whole. Now that the election's over, and maybe in terms of the vaccines that have come out, that will be good for these companies, and that could have been their thinking buying in the past quarter. Another thing they bought was the Snowflake IPO, which we already knew about, and I made a video on that if you want to check it out. And then they entered a position in T-Mobile. This one's interesting. There's a couple of other famous investors that have also bought into T-Mobile, so that's one I might have to look into more. Positions that were completely sold out of, Costco was one of the positions that Warren Buffett completely sold out of. And this is surprising because this is one of the positions he's held the longest. This long-term position was in the portfolio for almost 2 decades, so 20 years of holding this stock, and now he decides to cut it out of the portfolio. They had a 10x return on this position, so obviously sitting on a big gain. And so honestly, I'm not really surprised about this. Obviously, Costco is a great business if you're planning on holding it long term, but right now it does look pricey. It's trading at the upper ranges of its historical valuations, and maybe you can justify that, but I think selling at these prices probably isn't a bad idea. So now for stake increases, Bank of America again being bought into heavily by Berkshire, continuing this trend of consolidating his banking holdings into mainly Bank of America and selling off of a lot of the other banks he held like Wells Fargo. Another one is General Motors, which is interesting. Haven't really looked into it, so I don't have much insight there. Another one, Kroger, same thing. A very solid stock, a defensive company that's going to do well regardless of where the economy is. Decreases, we have Apple, which was sold off a bit, and so there was only a 4% trimming in Apple position. Another stock, Davita, 5% sold out of that position. Again, more selling out of Wells Fargo, and again putting that into Bank of America. And then a lot of these other smaller names. So we have this coding system company, Barrick Gold, is surprising because they just bought into that in the second quarter, and now they've sold out of 43% of that position that they just entered a quarter ago. So very uncharacteristic of what the company normally does for investments. Again, JP Morgan being sold out, PNC Financial, and then most of the other stocks were just kept steady, like American Express, Coca-Cola, Kraft Heinz are ones that the company is just buying and holding. Now, I want to show you this website I found because I think it's a great resource to see what some of the best investors in the world are investing into. It's dataroma.com, and I'll leave a link to this in the description. And this really shows you all the professional fund managers, what they're investing at, compiles all of their 13F filings, which show their holdings, and then tracks that over the quarters. And so you can sort this by the investors that are buying, or since in this video I'm looking at specifically stocks that were bought into this quarter, down here we can take a look at the top 10 buys in the third quarter, and we can click on this. And here you go. This shows all of the biggest buys by the total number of investors in the database of this website in the third quarter. We can sort this by percentage. And here you go. It comes up with some interesting names. We have Facebook at the top of the list. And then we have PG&E Corp, which is the utility company. That one seems interesting. Even though they have a lot of problems right now, there has been some very smart investors taking a position in PG&E. So this may be one I have to look more into. And then you have Micron, Alphabet, Wells Fargo, Berkshire Hathaway, more of the same names. And so I think this is a good resource to take a look at what some of the best investors in the world are buying into. Again, you can see a stock like Facebook had 5 buys, pretty significant, even though I probably wouldn't buy Facebook at the prices it was at in the third quarter. Obviously, people that are a lot smarter than I am think that Facebook has upside from even those prices. Now, the problem with a website like this, even though it is a great resource and it is always good information to know what famous investors are buying, it's not my favorite because instead of just having a list of stocks that are being bought, I'd rather have analysis behind those stocks, and the reasoning behind those buys is what I think is much more valuable than the names themselves. So in terms of that kind of information, you have to look somewhere else. And here is somewhere where I've found a place where you can get analysis as well as stock picks. So this is the security analysis Reddit, and every quarter in this subreddit, they compile a huge list of quarterly letters from investment firms. And so you can just take a look at some of them here, just a massive amount. You can click on all of these and it leads to the quarterly report. And so even though a lot of these are going to be smaller funds, these are still all people that are in the business of managing money. And I think there's some great insights to be had in reading some of the investment letters like these. Because in their letters, they're going to tell you the positions of the stocks they own. And then most of the time, most of these letters will have a write-up on at least one or two of the stocks that they hold a position in, talking about their thesis and why they're holding the position. And in my opinion, I think this is a lot more valuable than just getting the name of what stock someone is invested in, because I personally don't think that's the best way to go about investing. Obviously, you can do it. It's called coattail investing, and that is something that a lot of people do. But I would much rather learn the thought process behind finding a good investment instead of just copying blindly what someone else does. Another great thing about these reports is that a lot of them are for smaller funds. That means there's going to be a wider variety of stocks that these funds are investing in. When you take a look at the biggest investors like Warren Buffett, Michael Burry, and all of those famous people, they're all managing such a massive amount of money. All of their investments are going to be limited to the largest companies in the market just because they have too much money to be able to invest in smaller companies. So the great thing about these investment funds are that most of them are managing a lot less money than those huge firms, and so they're able to invest in smaller companies that you wouldn't hear about just by following the largest investors in the world. Now here's a letter I just opened at random, One Main Capital. And so, like I said, they have a letter where they talk about the performance, and then they talk about, and then here you can see the top 5 positions. So you see the top positions for the fund, and then they also give you a write-up. So this is a stock, Limbach Holdings, their ticker LMB. And then we have this whole full-page write-up about the company and the thesis and why this fund manager thinks that the stock will provide high returns. And this is something that I find much more valuable than just knowing the name of a stock that's being bought. Because when you read enough of investors' thought processes and how they work through a particular investment, then eventually you'll be at the point where you can start to do it for yourself, right? And this is what I like doing too, right? Just sort of like the metaphor, give someone a fish, feed them for a day, teach someone how to fish, feed them for life. It's sort of the same thing here, where you could just look at a list of names that investors are investing in, or you could read some of these reports and take a look at the reasoning and the thought process behind finding a good investment opportunity. So that's it for this video. Just want to share these couple of resources with you. Let me know if you found this kind of video valuable, and I'll definitely make some more like this. I'll leave a link to both of these websites down in the description if you want to check them out. So that's it for this video. Leave a like if you found value out of this video. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of my uploads. And so that's it for now, and I'll see you next time.